In 2016, an 87-year-old man was being treated for epilepsy at a hospital in Estonia. Doctors had placed EEG electrodes on his brain to monitor his seizures. Then, unexpectedly, he had a heart attack and died. What happened next was not planned, but it became one of the most important recordings in the history of neuroscience. For the first time ever, scientists had accidentally captured the full electrical activity of a human brain as it transitioned from life to death. And what they found was not silence. It was not a slow fade to black. It was a storm. In the 30 seconds surrounding the moment of death, the dying brain erupted in gamma-wave oscillations, the same brainwaves associated with memory retrieval, meditation, and conscious awareness. The brain, in its final act, appeared to be replaying a life. This is the neuroscience of dying, and it is far stranger than you were ever taught. Let us start with what we now know. In 2023, a landmark study from the University of Michigan, led by Dr. Jimo Borshigin and published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, provided the clearest evidence yet that the dying brain does not simply shut down. It activates. The researchers studied patients who were comatose and on life support. When ventilators were removed and cardiac arrest occurred, 2 of the 4 patients showed a massive surge of gamma-wave activity in the brain, specifically in the temporoparieto-occipital junction, an area associated with conscious processing, dreaming, and out-of-body experiences. This surge lasted for several minutes. The brain waves were organized, coherent, and in some cases stronger than those recorded during the patient's waking states. The implication is profound. The brain does not go gently. In its final moments, it may generate the most intense conscious experience a person has ever had. The takeaway for understanding ourselves: consciousness is not a light switch. It is more like a flame, and sometimes it burns brightest just before it goes out. Nearly every culture on Earth has stories of a tunnel of light, seen by the dying. For centuries, this was considered evidence of an afterlife. Neuroscience now offers a different, and arguably more fascinating, explanation. When blood pressure drops and the heart stops pumping, the brain begins to lose oxygen. The visual cortex, located at the back of the brain, is particularly sensitive to oxygen deprivation. As neurons in the peripheral visual field shut down before those in the center, the result is a progressively narrowing field of vision, a tunnel, with residual activity in the center creating the perception of bright light. Dr. Kevin Nelson, a neurologist at the University of Kentucky, published research in the journal Neurology demonstrating that the tunnel experience closely mirrors what fighter pilots report during high-G maneuvers that restrict blood flow to the brain. The experience is identical: tunnel vision, bright light, a sense of peace, and it has nothing to do with dying. It has everything to do with how the visual cortex responds to oxygen loss. A 2019 study in Piaget further confirmed that REM intrusion, the brain's dream-generating system activating during crisis, plays a significant role in near-death experiences. People who reported near-death experiences were significantly more likely to also experience REM intrusion in everyday life, such as sleep paralysis or waking hallucinations. The practical insight: the tunnel of light is real. People genuinely see it. But it is generated by a brain under extreme physiological stress, not by a destination beyond it. The experience is no less meaningful for being neurological. If anything, it reveals how extraordinary the brain truly is. One of the most debated theories about the dying brain involves dimethyltryptamine, DMT, a powerful psychedelic compound that occurs naturally in the human body. In 2019, researchers at the University of Michigan published a study in Scientific Reports showing that the brains of dying rats produced a significant surge of endogenous DMT. The levels were comparable to those of serotonin and dopamine, major neurotransmitters, suggesting DMT is not a trace chemical but a potentially significant player in brain chemistry during death. DMT, when administered to living humans, produces experiences remarkably similar to near-death reports: encountering beings, feeling a sense of profound meaning, experiencing time dilation, seeing geometric patterns, and feeling that the experience is more real than real. A 2018 study published in Frontiers in Psychology by researchers at Imperial College London directly compared DMT experiences with near-death experience accounts using standardized rating scales. The overlap was striking. DMT experiences matched near-death reports more closely than any other psychedelic compound. However, a critical caveat: we do not yet have direct evidence that DMT surges occur in the dying human brain. The rat data is compelling but not conclusive. This remains one of the most active frontiers in consciousness research. The takeaway: the brain may carry its own key to extraordinary states of consciousness, a built-in mechanism for transcendence that activates precisely when the body is failing. Whether or not DMT is the specific molecule, the dying brain clearly has access to experiential states that dwarf normal waking life. Perhaps the most reported near-death phenomenon is the life review, the experience of seeing your entire life flash before your eyes. It sounds like a cliché, but neuroscience suggests it is a real neurological event. The gamma wave surges recorded in dying brains occur in regions associated with memory consolidation and retrieval. The same neural circuits that encode and replay memories during sleep appear to fire rapidly during the dying process. A 2022 study published in Frontiers in Aging Neuroscience, the one analyzing the Estonian patient, found that the oscillatory patterns in the dying brain were strikingly similar to those observed during memory recall, dreaming, and meditation. The authors proposed that the dying brain may be performing a final rapid review of stored memories. Dr. Sam Parnia, Director of Critical Care and Resuscitation Research at NYU Langone, has collected thousands of accounts from cardiac arrest survivors. In his research, published across multiple peer-reviewed journals, a consistent pattern emerges. People report a panoramic, nonlinear review of their lives, often experienced from the perspective of others. They described feeling the emotional impact of their actions on the people around them, not just remembering events, but re-experiencing them from the outside. Whether this is a coherent neurological process or the subjective interpretation of chaotic neural firing remains debated. But the consistency of the reports, across cultures, ages, and belief systems, suggests something structured is occurring. The practical insight, the life review phenomenon, raises a haunting question for the living. If your brain may one day replay your life in its final moments, the way you live today is not just a matter of present experience. It is the raw material for your brain's last story about who you were. The deepest question in all of this is, why? Why would a dying brain surge with activity instead of simply shutting down? From an evolutionary perspective, it makes no sense to expend precious energy on vivid hallucinations when the organism is beyond saving. One hypothesis, proposed by Borjigin's team, is that the gamma surge is not purposeful. It is the brain's equivalent of a power grid surging before a blackout. As inhibitory neurons lose function due to oxygen deprivation, excitatory neurons fire without restraint, producing a brief, chaotic burst of hyperactivity. Another hypothesis is more provocative. The surge may represent the brain's final attempt to problem solve. Throughout evolution, loss of consciousness has often been temporary: fainting, near drowning, head trauma. A brain that activates intensely during these states might increase the chance of survival by maintaining awareness and motor readiness. A 2015 study in the Annals of the New York Academy of Sciences explored this idea and found that the neurochemical cascade during cardiac arrest includes a massive release of norepinephrine and cortisol, stress hormones that prime the brain for emergency action. The dying brain may not know it is dying. It may be fighting to survive with everything it has. We do not yet fully understand consciousness, and we certainly do not understand what, if anything, exists on the other side of it. But what the neuroscience tells us is this: the dying brain is not empty. It is full. It is generating experience, possibly the most vivid, intense, meaningful experience a human being can have. This does not prove or disprove any metaphysical claim. But it does something equally important. It tells us that the organ sitting inside your skull is capable of things we are only beginning to comprehend. The brain does not need external chemicals to produce transcendence. It does not need a guru, a church, or a ceremony. Under the right conditions that happen to include its own destruction, it can generate experiences that survivors describe as the most real thing they have ever known. And that, perhaps, is the most astonishing finding of all. Not that dying is peaceful, though for many the evidence suggests it may be, but that the brain, in its final act, is still doing what it has always done. It is making meaning, it is telling a story. And the story, apparently, is your entire life. That is the human code, written not in the moments you remember, but in the moment your brain remembers them all at once.